You wake up exhausted, even after 8 hours of sleep. Your sex drive is gone. You can't focus at work. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. You search online. Why am I so tired after a breakup? Low libido, depression, men. Can heartbreak make you physically sick? The answers don't make sense. You think you're broken, but you're not. Something is happening inside your body that nobody explained to you. Here's what you need to understand. When you go through chronic emotional stress, a toxic relationship, ongoing conflict, or psychological trauma, your body doesn't just hurt emotionally, it changes biologically. And one of the most devastating changes happens to a single hormone that controls almost everything you associate with being yourself: testosterone. This isn't about masculinity. This is about biology. Testosterone controls your energy, your confidence, your drive, your ability to think clearly, build muscle, and feel motivated. And when chronic stress enters your life, your body launches a biological war that shuts testosterone production down. Not because you're weak, because your body thinks you're in danger. Here's the problem most people don't know. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a physical threat and an emotional threat. A lion chasing you, a partner screaming at you, financial collapse, constant criticism. To your hypothalamus, the command center in your brain, they are identical. Both are threats. Both trigger the exact same survival response. And that response has one goal: keep you alive right now. Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. So your body makes a choice: survival over reproduction, survival over growth, survival over everything. Your body runs on two major hormonal systems. The HPA axis controls stress, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals, cortisol. The HPG axis controls reproduction and vitality, hypothalamus, pituitary, gonads, testosterone. Under normal conditions, both systems run in balance, but under chronic stress, the HPA axis doesn't just activate, it dominates. It hijacks your entire hormonal system and shuts down the HPG axis completely. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Your ancestors needed this response to survive immediate physical danger, run from the predator, fight the attacker, escape the threat. Reproduction could wait. But in the modern world, the threat never ends. The argument doesn't stop. The job stress continues. The emotional abuse repeats. And your body stays locked in survival mode for weeks, months, years. Let me show you exactly what happens. When chronic stress activates your HPA axis, your adrenal glands flood your bloodstream with cortisol. Cortisol is your danger hormone. In acute stress, a deadline, a near accident, it's helpful. It gives you energy, focus, and speed. Then it goes away. But in chronic stress, cortisol never goes away. It stays elevated. And elevated cortisol doesn't just coexist with testosterone. It actively hunts it down and destroys it at every level of your body. Level 1, the brain shutdown. Your testosterone production starts in your brain. Deep in your hypothalamus, there are specialized neurons called kisspeptin neurons. These neurons control the timing and strength of the signal that starts testosterone production. They release a chemical called GnRH. GnRH tells your pituitary gland to release LH, luteinizing hormone. LH travels through your bloodstream to your testicles and tells them, make testosterone. This is the command chain. Kisspeptin, GnRH, LH, testosterone. But cortisol breaks this chain at the very first link. Chronic cortisol suppresses kisspeptin neuron activity. It reduces kisspeptin expression. This slows down or completely stops the GnRH signal at its source. Even before your hypothalamus can send the testosterone production signal, cortisol has already shut it down. But cortisol doesn't stop there. Even if some GnRH manages to get released, cortisol makes your pituitary gland less sensitive to it. The result? Your pituitary produces less LH. Less LH means less signal reaches your testicles. Your testicles don't know they're supposed to make testosterone. The command never arrives. Level 2. The factory sabotage. But even if the LH signal somehow gets through, cortisol is already waiting in your testicles. Inside your testicles, specialized cells called Leydig cells manufacture testosterone. These are your testosterone factories, and cortisol sabotages them directly. Here's how. Both cortisol and testosterone are made from the same raw material, cholesterol. They use the same biochemical pathway, the same enzymes, the same machinery. When cortisol levels are high, cortisol production floods this pathway. It blocks and competes for the enzymes needed to make testosterone. The resources that should be making testosterone are being stolen to make more cortisol instead. But it gets worse. There's a protein called STAR, steroidogenic acute regulatory protein. STAR's job is to transport cholesterol into the mitochondria where hormone production happens. It's the gatekeeper. Without STAR, cholesterol can't enter. Without cholesterol, no hormones can be made. Cortisol suppresses STAR protein expression. It locks the door to the factory's raw materials. Even if cholesterol is available, it can't get in. Testosterone production stops completely. And there's still more. Leydig cells need to receive the LH signal from your pituitary to know when to produce testosterone. They do this through LH receptors on their surface. Chronic cortisol exposure reduces the number of these receptors. Even if LH arrives, the cell is hard of hearing. It doesn't get the signal strongly enough. And in extreme, prolonged chronic stress, cortisol can trigger apoptosis, programmed cell death of Leydig cells themselves. Your testosterone-producing capacity is permanently reduced. Level 3. Blood and body sabotage. But cortisol isn't finished. Even the small amount of testosterone that manages to get produced faces another problem. In your blood, there's a protein called SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. SHBG binds tightly to testosterone. When testosterone is bound to SHBG, it's inactive. It can't reach your muscles, brain, or tissues. Only free testosterone, unbound testosterone, is biologically active. In acute stress, cortisol can increase SHBG production, binding up even more testosterone. But in chronic stress, the picture changes.
Chronic stress creates insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction. This actually lowers SHBG. You might think less SHBG means more free testosterone, right? Wrong, because total testosterone production has already been crushed by everything we just described. There's so little testosterone being made that even with lower SHBG, you still end up with drastically reduced, active, usable testosterone. And cortisol has one more trick. It can weakly bind to androgen receptors, the same receptors testosterone uses in your muscles and brain. It blocks testosterone from docking and doing its job. Finally, cortisol breaks down muscle tissue. It's catabolic. Testosterone builds muscle. It's anabolic. Cortisol does the opposite. Your entire metabolism shifts away from growth and repair. Now here's the critical part most people miss. This entire biological cascade, this war inside your body, doesn't require physical injury. It only requires one thing: your brain perceiving a threat, a stressful thought, an overwhelming emotion, anger, anxiety, fear, despair. Your amygdala, the part of your brain that processes emotion and threat, doesn't ask questions. It doesn't verify if the threat is real. It just reacts. And it signals your hypothalamus the same way a physical injury would. Your hypothalamus tells your pituitary to release ACTH. ACTH tells your adrenal glands to make cortisol. The axial response is identical. Physical danger or emotional pain, your body doesn't know the difference. Studies confirm this. Public speaking, difficult mental tasks, recalling traumatic memories,
all cause immediate, measurable spikes in cortisol. Each spike causes a corresponding dip in testosterone. Your body says, "Not now, we're dealing with a threat." But here's where chronic emotional stress becomes devastating. Physical stress usually ends. The injury heals. The predator leaves. The danger passes. But emotional stress, especially relationship stress, workplace toxicity, ongoing conflict, never ends. It's a low-grade, perpetual threat. Your fight-or-flight nervous system stays activated. Your HPA axis stays chronically stimulated. Cortisol stays elevated. And sustained cortisol creates sustained testosterone suppression. This isn't a temporary dip. This is clinically low testosterone. The prolactin problem. And there's another hormone involved that nobody talks about: prolactin. Prolactin is normally associated with lactation in women, but men produce it too. Under chronic emotional stress, prolactin levels rise significantly in men. Elevated prolactin does two things. First, it suppresses dopamine signaling in your brain, your motivation chemical, your drive, your pleasure, your libido. When dopamine is suppressed, you lose all of it. Second, high prolactin directly inhibits GnRH release from your hypothalamus. This is another layer of suppression on top of what cortisol is already doing. High cortisol plus high prolactin creates a particularly powerful shutdown of your reproductive hormone system. This is why chronically stressed men experience such severe loss of sex drive, erectile dysfunction, and motivation. It's not just low testosterone. It's low testosterone plus elevated prolactin plus elevated cortisol, a triple assault on your system. But the biological damage doesn't stop at hormones. Chronic stress creates feedback loops that make everything worse. Let's say you're in a strained relationship, constant conflict, criticism, emotional volatility. This keeps your nervous system in fight or flight mode. Cortisol stays elevated. Cortisol suppresses testosterone. Low testosterone causes fatigue, irritability, and loss of sex drive. These symptoms make the relationship worse. More conflict, more stress, more cortisol, even lower testosterone. The cycle repeats. Research confirms men in strained relationships have significantly lower baseline testosterone. Here's another one most people don't know about. Chronic cortisol promotes fat storage around your internal organs. This is called visceral fat, and visceral fat is not inactive. It's metabolically active. It releases inflammatory signaling molecules called cytokines, specifically IL-6 and TNF-alpha. These cytokines travel through your bloodstream to your brain. They interfere with your hypothalamus and pituitary, suppressing GnRH and LH release even further. They also directly impair Leydig cell function in your testicles. So now you have another cycle. Stress increases cortisol. Cortisol increases belly fat. Belly fat releases inflammation. Inflammation suppresses testosterone further. Lower testosterone makes it harder to lose fat and build muscle. More fat accumulates. More inflammation is released. This is why the belly stress is so hard to lose. It's actively working against your hormonal recovery. And there's one more cycle happening that most people never connect. Your gut. Your gut contains trillions of bacteria that help digest food, produce vitamins, and regulate inflammation. Chronic stress disrupts this balance. It reduces beneficial bacteria. It allows harmful bacteria to overgrow. This condition is called dysbiosis. Dysbiosis increases gut permeability. Your gut lining becomes leaky. Inflammatory molecules leak into your bloodstream. That inflammation reaches your brain and testicles, further suppressing testosterone production. But it gets worse. Some gut bacteria are involved in metabolizing and recycling hormones, including testosterone. When your gut microbiome is disrupted, this recycling becomes less efficient. Your body can't reuse hormones properly. This is why digestive issues and hormonal issues happen together during chronic stress. They're not separate, they're connected. So what does all of this look like in real life? When chronic stress crushes your testosterone, you don't just feel a little off. You experience a specific cluster of symptoms. Your sex drive disappears. You lose interest completely. Erectile dysfunction, difficulty getting or maintaining erections, reduced semen volume, morning erections stop. This is one of the clearest biomarkers of low testosterone. Persistent fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. High cortisol burns through your energy reserves. Low testosterone reduces your metabolic drive. You're running on empty from both ends. You lose muscle mass and strength. This is nearly impossible to reverse while cortisol is high, because testosterone builds muscle and cortisol tears it down. You're in a double negative state. You gain body fat, especially around your belly, the stress belly. Your bone density decreases over time. You may develop breast tissue. Fat tissue converts testosterone into estrogen, worsening the imbalance. Depression or irritability. Low testosterone is strongly linked to mood disturbances. You feel dissatisfied, unable to experience pleasure, short-tempered. Complete loss of motivation, no competitive spirit, no interest in hobbies, work, or goals. Brain fog and poor concentration. trouble focusing, memory lapses, slowed thinking, increased anxiety. The stress itself causes anxiety, and low testosterone reduces your resilience to handle stress. Sleep disruption. Here's the specific pattern that identifies stress-induced low testosterone. You feel physically exhausted but mentally on edge. Classic high cortisol, low testosterone state. Symptoms worsen under pressure. Your libido crashes. Irritability explodes. Fatigue deepens. You recover poorly from exercise or stressful events. Sleep feels unrefreshing. You sleep but wake up like you haven't rested. Cortisol won't let your body truly rest. Here's what you need to understand. Every symptom you've experienced, every moment you thought you were broken, every time you questioned what was wrong with you, it wasn't weakness. It wasn't failure. It wasn't your fault. It was biology. Your body was doing exactly what it was designed to do: prioritize survival. When your brain perceived chronic threat, emotional, psychological, relational, it activated the same ancient survival mechanism your ancestors used to escape predators. It shut down reproduction. It shut down growth. It conserved every resource for immediate survival. The problem is, in the modern world, the threat never ends. Your body stays locked in this state, not because it's broken, because it's working exactly as programmed. Understanding this changes everything, because now you know the fatigue isn't laziness, the low libido isn't disinterest in your partner, the brain fog isn't stupidity, the irritability isn't who you are.
It's cortisol dominating testosterone. It's your HPA axis crushing your HPG axis. It's biology, and biology can be changed. But here's what you need to know next. Everything we just covered, the hormonal shutdown, the symptoms, the vicious cycles, this is only the beginning. Because when testosterone stays suppressed for months or years, something else happens. Your body doesn't just stay in this state, it adapts to it. Your brain rewires, your receptors downregulate, your baseline permanently shifts. This is called hormonal adaptation, and it makes recovery exponentially harder. But there's also something most men never hear about, a second hormonal cascade that happens alongside testosterone suppression, one that affects your thyroid, your growth hormone, and your adrenal function. The complete metabolic shutdown. We'll cover that next. If this explained what you've been experiencing, you're not alone. Millions of men are living in this state right now without understanding why. The next video will show you the second wave of biological damage and, more importantly, the first steps toward recovery. Because understanding what broke is the first step to fixing it. This is not permanent. Your biology can heal, but only if you understand how it was damaged in the first place. See you in the next one.